Imaging Resources interviewed the, let me check, Senior Manager of Global Marketing Strategy for Olympus Imaging Division, Masanori Sako. And that interview was made in March. And I picked up some points from that interview and I will comment on those and what does that mean for us photographers. Coming up. Hi there, my name is Peter Forsgaard and I am an Olympus visionary and a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. But let's get right into the points and things Mr. Sako said in that interview. And when I say these things on this video, these are not facts. These are my opinions and my predictions, what is going to happen from what I've read and can read from the between the lines of the interview. And I will have the whole interview in the description, or the link to this interview in the description of this video. And also Daily Camera News had picked up some points which I actually printed and will comment on those points that they picked up. And let's start with the camera business first, or the models of the cameras. Mr. Sako said that Olympus intends to continue the EM1 Mark II alongside the EM1 Mark III in most countries to provide a more affordable camera option. And that's something really interesting because EM1 Mark II is still very good camera, even though there are two better cameras introduced after that, EM1X and the EM1 Mark III. But as Sako said, that the EM1 Mark II will be also produced and will be sold with the affordable price. And that's good news. And then there's always a question about, is the EM1 Mark II going to get firmware updates? And if we look back, then EM1, the original EM1, got 4 major upgrades. And the EM1 Mark II has gotten 3. So if Olympus is still having the same policy, there might be a firmware 4.0 somewhere in the future. I don't know when. As I said in the beginning, these are my kind of like predictions and opinions according to the interview. So don't take anything as a fact what I say. These are just my opinions, as I said many times already. But I want to stress that because as an Olympus visionary, I don't want to misguide or mislead you that you think that these are actually facts what I'm saying. The facts are what the Mr. Sako said, but when I interpret them, they are not facts, just my opinions. And then there was another thing about the Olympus EM5 Mark III, and Sako said that the EM5 Mark III is doing well and is almost perfectly matching expectations. So, despite the big hassle about the material that they used in their body, that everybody is concerned about the plastic body, which I don't see as an issue because it's a very durable camera, it's been selling as they expected, at least almost as they expected. That's good news because, you know, it's with every camera company. If they can live up to the expectations for a model, it's good news. It's also said that Olympus wants to grow its customer base, which is why they are trying to make their stuff more affordable, and competitors are aggressively pricing their cameras and lenses. Well, what this actually tells me is that Olympus is trying to make the prices as low as possible. And why they might seem a bit expensive is that other companies are aggressively lowering their prices to keep up with the market share. I don't know if this is true, but it's a very interesting point that Mr. Masanori Sako said. So if that's true, then that's going to be interesting to see if the other camera manufacturers are selling with a too inexpensive price. That's interesting. I don't know if that's true, but let's see what happens in the future about that. And then there was some talk about lenses also in that interview, and Sako said they are making more pro lenses like the 12 to 45 mm Pro that are more compact and lightweight. which means that there will be some more, maybe f4 lenses. And in lens roadmap, there are some fast prime lenses also going to be introduced in the near future. And that's also interesting. And for me, the 12 to 45 millimeter f4 Pro lens is a very good move because that's the core thing. They want to have small and light equipment, and the 12 to 45 millimeter is a perfect match with the smaller OMD bodies like EM5 Mark III and II, and also the EM10 cameras. It's a perfect match, and it's actually, I used it yesterday with the EM1 Mark III when I went out, and actually that photograph is taken with that combo, and it was a pleasure to use. So I'm really happy about that. And then about the 150 to 400 millimeter f4.5 Pro lens that has been introduced like 3 times. Mr. Sako could not confirm when that will be launched. They hope it will be launched this year, so we don't know yet, but I know many of us are waiting for it. I'm waiting for it because I want to test it, because it's an interesting lens. I personally don't need that lens. I very seldom use that long focal length, so I might not need that lens, but it will be interesting to test. Let's see what else there was. Interesting also about the AF, that was the new AF that was introduced in EM1 Mark III. And what Mr. Sako said, that the new AF can recognize eyes at 1/5 of the size they previously could and faces 2/3 of the size. But then there's an interesting thing. There's also a human recognition and pattern recognition. That's interesting because I didn't really... Actually, we were talking about that with Jimmy Cheng from Red35 on my live last Wednesday. Then Jimmy said that the human recognition could be a really good thing for the next step for AI. And even though the EM1 Mark III does not have AI, it's interesting that it does have the human recognition. That is interesting. That will help also to recognize the face. And that's really interesting. And about the differences between EM1X and the EM1 Mark III. And the main difference comes from that the EM1X has 2 processors, which helps and makes some things possible. But the EM1 Mark III has only 1 processor. Even though it's a more powerful processor, there are still some things that Olympus has not figured out how to do with 1 processor, and that's the AI recognition software. So it's not yet known if the EM1 Mark III will get that in the near future, because Olympus has still figured out how to do that with 1 processor. But that's also interesting. And then there was also a talk about how the Starry Sky AF works, and what Mr. Sako said is that it looks at maximum brightness value, number of pixels above the threshold, pixel integration value above the threshold, and average pixel luminance value above the threshold. So that's totally a new technology, as I understand, and that's really interesting way. So it actually looks at the different luminance values on different things, and has some different thresholds on that where it's going to focus correctly. And I've tried it, and it works perfectly. It's a marvelous thing. It just works. And then there was, of course, the question about, is Olympus planning to sell its imaging business? And Mr. Sako said that the imaging division leads technological development for the company, and it's not for sale, at least for now. But of course, we can't tell what happens in 20 years, maybe 15 years, we don't know. But for now, it's not. And also he said that Olympus will continue to introduce new products at a time of their choosing. Well, of course, that's what companies do. They launch stuff when they think that it's good for them and good for the customers. But it was a really interesting interview, and it especially the fact that the EM1 Mark II will be alongside the other EM1 cameras, and also that they are planning on seeing how the AI AF can be done with 1 processor. That might predict a firmware update if they know how to do that. And also about the f4 small Pro lenses, I think that's good news. Bad news is that the 150 and 400 millimeter f4.5 lens is not known when it's going to be available. But otherwise, I think it was a good interview, and the stuff that Mr. Sacco said are really promising. Now, let me check if I have something else. No, I think I had it all. And here are some more videos about the industry and the future of Olympus and how the camera sales have been going lately. So you might want to watch that if you're interested in how the business of camera manufacturing is doing. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.